Welcome into the FanDuel Hurry Up. I'm Ariel Epstein from SportsGrid. Joining me from numberFire, Jim Sannes. Jim, happy weekend to you.
Yeah, happy weekend to you too. Week 13 is just around the horizon, finally past week 12, which dragged on forever. So I am ready for a new slate and some new football to watch for sure. And, it could be an interesting one too. Lots of good running backs to pick from. So not the worst slate, but definitely pretty dicey at quarterback.
I love this Hurry Up segment because it's all about stackable games. Let's start with the Los Angeles Chargers, who are facing the New England Patriots this week. How come you like a Chargers stack?
I think for me, it's because we're still getting salary decreases on players facing the Patriots. We're we really shouldn't because our defense just isn't really that good so far this year. So, I'm all on board using players facing them, especially if we're going to get a discount on guys as good as Justin Herbert and Austin Eckler. Sign me up every time. Eckler specifically is outrageously undersalaried. The Patriots rush defense has been pretty terrible this year, but they've also just been not bad, not good overall. 19th overall defense based on numberFire's metrics. And Eckler, $7,000 last week in his first game back, 14 carries and 16 targets. But he also had 36% of the team's red zone opportunities, which is a big number considering that before his injury, he was not getting that much work inside the red zone. He had 2 carries and 2 targets inside the 10-yard line. So the floor for Eckler is amazing because of his volume, but there's also a path to a really good ceiling because he is now getting work close to the goal line. Sure, Joshua Kelly is going to pill for some touchdowns every now and then. That's going to happen, but Eckler is going to be the featured back in this offense. And for $7,000, that's too good to pass up. As far as Justin Herbert goes, you get the double dip with him and Eckler, but also he's one of the few quarterbacks on this slate who can hang a 30-burger on you. There just aren't a lot of high-upside guys in the slate. Herbert is one of them. Again, I'm not afraid of this Patriots defense. The Chargers offense has been efficient so far this year, so I think it makes a lot of sense to go at the Chargers pretty heavily here, load up with Herbert and Eckler, and then don't worry too much about where the targets go elsewhere because they might be spread out a bit thin because Eckler's taking up so many looks himself. But I think this stack makes a lot of sense in a game where I'd expect the Chargers offense to move the ball efficiently.
The Chargers are the second best offense in passing yards per game behind the Kansas City Chiefs this season. A high total on the board on the FanDuel Sportsbook, the Cleveland Browns and the Tennessee Titans. It's around 53.5. The real question is, which of these two teams do you stack in DFS?
Why not both? I think you can go at both sides here. They're definitely pretty fun. I don't know if I want to get to Baker Mayfield necessarily, but Nick Chubb and Jarvis Landry definitely intriguing. My favorite stack in this game, though, is Ryan Tannehill paired with Derrick Henry. And you don't get the double dip as much. Henry's been getting more passing down work recently, and it sounds like there could be more expansion there as well. But the reason that I want to pair Ryan Tannehill with Derrick Henry is that every time the Titans run a play, you're probably going to score points because Tannehill is going to get all the passing yards. Derrick Henry will get almost every rushing yard for this team. So every play they run, you're going to get a point. I think that's a good thing here for sure. We saw a situation last year in week number 12 where both Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry were in the perfect FanDuel lineup against Houston earlier this year. Tannehill had more than 29 points. Henry, I think, had around 36 in that game. So even though they don't necessarily double dip, where you're not getting the passing yards to double up on these two guys, there's still a good situation and a good number of times where if one guy goes off, the other guy will probably do well too, and I think that's especially attractive in a game where they have the second highest implied total on the slate. It's the highest overall total on the slate. Tighter spread, which should keep things pretty close throughout. So I think this adds up really well for this Titans offense. This is a very similar spot to the one they had against Houston in that game earlier this year where both these guys did well. I could see that happening once again here. So Tannehill, I think, won't be all that popular just because I'd expect most people to go to Henry off that big day last week. But Tannehill still has a good ceiling. As I mentioned, not a lot of quarterbacks on this slate too. So I think it makes sense here to use Tannehill with Henry and get exposure to every yard and every touchdown the Titans get.
3 straight games for Derrick Henry with over 100 rushing yards. The Browns are also a bottom 15 defense against the pass. The last one is a game that surprised me a bit because I think it's a toss-up. The Cardinals are hosting the Los Angeles Rams. You like stacking the Rams in this situation. Why are you trusting the quarterback, Jared Goff?
Trust is a tough word. Maybe not trust, but I'm going to use it, I think, just because this game is really attractive for daily fantasy because it's a high-paced game. And when there aren't a lot of logical shootouts available, you want to target games where there'll be a lot of play volume, and I think that should be the case here. Both these teams rank in the top 7 in situation-neutral pace, according to Football Outsiders, so that should mean that there will be a lot of plays run here, which naturally inflates the volume for everyone involved in it. And it's not like Cooper Kupp needs the bump because he has 25% of the team's overall targets, deep targets, and red zone targets from week 3 on, which is a sample since Josh Reynolds saw his role go up. And Kupp is $6,600. I think that's a really low number. I'm not saying don't use Robert Woods. Right? Robert Woods is a very good play too, but Kupp at $6,600, I think it is too good to pass up at this point. Now, Goff, you could question the ceiling. He's $7,200. There are definitely concerns there, especially because last week, pretty bad, which is why I might not use the trust word with Jared Goff, but the week before that, they were on the road on the East Coast facing Tampa Bay, and Goff was awesome. He looked really good in that game against a kind of a similar defense where the Bucs are very aggressive defensively. They generate a lot of pressure. We'll see the same thing here with Arizona. So I think that Goff at least can mitigate the pass rush here. We have this narrative in our heads that Goff struggles under pressure. He does. It's a narrative for a reason. We saw that come to bear last week, but it does not mean he can't have good games against high-pressure teams, as we saw against Tampa Bay. So I'm on board with using Kyler Murray despite the shoulder injury because he is so good, but I'm also not opposed to taking the discount here. Jared Goff, 72, Cooper Kupp, 66. Low salaried exposure to a good game is something I will always take. I think it makes sense to do so here as well.
You are on the sharp side. The Rams line continues to move in their favor from -2 to -3, despite your friends at numberFire showing that 60% of the bets are on the dogs in the Arizona Cardinals. That is your FanDuel Hurry Up. I'm Ariel Epstein from SportsGrid. That is Jim Sanas from numberFire. Thanks for watching.